My daughter-in-law looked me straight in the eye and said, "It's time you moved out." Her voice was calm, but the sentence felt like being erased from my own home. I didn't argue. I just smiled, brewed another cup of coffee, and quietly made plans she'd never see coming. By the time she came home from work, the house wasn't hers to control anymore. Before I continue the story, please subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing how far these stories travel. The kitchen has known my step for 30 years. The oak floor dips slightly where I stand to stir my oatmeal. The faucet hums with a familiar groan. I measure coffee the same way every morning. 2 scoops, level. The drip machine gurgles, sending up the scent that used to mean family mornings. My chair sits a few inches from the table. Not quite right. I ease it back into place without comment. That's what I do. Quiet corrections. Lyle's phone buzzes on the counter. He doesn't look up from the news. I pour my coffee, let the steam warm my glasses, and hold the cup steady until the tremor in my hand disappears. The house wakes slower these days, except for the hum of someone else's plans beneath it. Darlie walks in with her hair still damp, crisp voice cutting through the warmth. "It's time you moved out," she says, as if discussing weather. I pause mid-bite, oatmeal cooling. "Excuse me?" She gives me that bright smile, sweet, managerial. "We've been talking, and we think it's best for everyone. You'd be safer. You'd have more freedom." Lyle shifts in his seat, eyes on his phone. The spoon slides from my hand into the bowl with a soft clink. For a moment, the air feels thinner. I take a breath and manage. I see. Darlie keeps going, words like polished stones, best, safer, freedom, stacked neatly on my chest. I nod once, because nodding is easier than disbelief. They show me drawings on the table, remodel plans. My name doesn't appear anywhere, but my absence does. I listen, plumbing upgrades, open flow, less clutter. Lyle gestures at the layout like a salesman, not a son. When Darlie says optimize, she means erase. Mom's room becomes office space, just more efficient. My stomach knots, but I keep my eyes steady. I memorize each phrase the way nurses memorize symptoms. Darlie's voice wraps safety around convenience. I trace the table's oak grain, counting my breaths. Their conversation floats above me like paint fumes, bright, chemical, choking. A single page lies on the counter. Face up, convert mom's room, office, content, studio, yellow highlights, sticky notes marked ROI, angles. I align the paper square to the table's edge and ask softly, "Where would I be in this new flow?" Darlie answers with her calm authority. "We'll help you tour senior communities. It's best practice." Lyle stays silent, his hand resting on the chair his father built. I slip my small notebook from my apron and write 3 words. Best for whom? The sound of the pen scratches louder than their breathing. I fold the note once and place it in my pocket, the weight of it sharper than the coffee's heat. I rinse the bowl, water running steady over my hands. The rooster figurine on the windowsill stares forward, unblinking. The scratch on the sink where my husband dropped a wrench still glints under the light. I take a deep breath. I will not argue over a chair I bought and sanded myself. Silence is not surrender, it's structure. I dry my hands, turn off the faucet, and glance once more at the table. My decision is not born of anger. It's born of precision. Steam curls upward from my untouched coffee, thin and pale. I close the notebook on those 3 words, best for whom, and slide it beside my cup. Outside, a crow lands on the porch railing, black against the morning light. The hum of the refrigerator fills the quiet, steady and indifferent. Tomorrow, they'll host their architect and talk about updates. They won't notice that the file drawer holding the deed is already missing one document. The coffee steam rises higher, like a quiet signal only I can read. The cafe smelled of butter and burnt espresso. A Sunday crowd filled the place, all chatter and silverware. I sat at the end of a four-top, the seat no one wanted, half in the sunlight, half in the draft from the door. Darlie waved to the waiter like a host at a press event. Nolan, the architect, adjusted his glasses and opened his iPad. "We'll remove this load wall to open the space for natural light," he said, swiping through diagrams of my home as if it were a vacant lot. Darlie nodded briskly. "Mom's okay with downsizing." The word hit the table like a dropped knife. I sipped my coffee, said nothing. Lyle stirred sugar that never dissolved. Bryn scrolled through color palettes, her tone crisp and detached. They discussed flow, ROI, and aging in place. While I sat in the middle of their future, already deleted, the waitress asked if it would be one check or separate. Darlie smiled. "We'll cover hers." The pause after hers lingered like a spotlight. I thanked them, voice even, then set my napkin beside my untouched omelet. "The room's a little loud," I said. No one stopped me as I stood. Nolan leaned toward Darlie as I stepped away. "We'll use the smaller guest bath footprint for that studio." The word studio followed me out like perfume I didn't choose. Outside. The air was warm, the light too sharp. I took a slow breath, one that belonged to me alone, and walked to my car. I wasn't planning to go anywhere except home, but the yoga mat in my trunk caught my eye. Darlie's. She'd left it after her last class. A reasonable excuse, I thought, to take a drive. The Pilates studio sat behind a strip mall, all glass and pale wood. Cars lined the front. I parked and rolled down the window. Voices drifted out, hers, unmistakably. "Demos Monday," she said, laughing. "She'll freak." Another woman asked, "What about her stuff?" Darlie's answer came with a shrug I could almost see. "We'll clear it while she's out. Dad won't stop me." The sound of my own pulse filled my ears. I gripped the steering wheel, steady. A single crow called from the lamppost above, and I counted the beats of silence that followed. I didn't start the car until they drove away. When I finally did, I didn't turn toward home. I drove to the park by the lake, where the ducks made slow ripples on the water. I rolled down the window and let the wind cool my face. The breath I took felt heavy but measured. "Monday," I whispered, "the day they plan to erase me." A jogger passed, nodding politely, unaware that my world had just split along a kitchen wall. I watched the sunlight skip across the surface of the lake. "When people plan around you long enough," I murmured, "you start to hear the rhythm of exclusion before they even open their mouths." I sat on the park bench and took out my notebook. On the top line, I wrote, "Monday, observe quietly." Beneath it, I added the words from their blueprint, "Best for everyone." The phrase looked smaller in ink than it sounded in my kitchen. If silence was a crime, then mine would be deliberate. I closed the book and looked toward the water. A boy threw breadcrumbs. Ducks scattered and returned again. The world continued. I opened my phone and typed a short text to Janet, my old real estate friend. "Coffee soon?" Her reply came quick. "Always." I smiled, faintly. The air smelled of leaves and lake salt, the kind of calm that hides a coming storm. No one knew what I had already begun. The trap was forming, quiet and patient. When I drove away, the page in my notebook fluttered open on the seat beside me. It read, "Monday, observe quietly." I didn't realize I'd find the proof in my own drawer before the sun set. The house was quiet again. The kind of quiet that sounds like it's listening. The clock over the sink ticked, slow and hollow. The scent of lemon polish still lingered from Darley's deep clean last night, as if she meant to wipe me out with the dust. I walked past the kitchen where the chair still sat slightly out of place, the same way she left it. When the noise leaves, the truth hums louder. The sunlight reached through the blinds, striping the cedar table that had anchored every major decision in this family: school forms, tax seasons, even birthday cards. My hands hesitated on its edge before pulling open the top drawer. Inside were decades of life folded into paper: tax receipts, appliance manuals, cards with fading ink. I worked through the pile methodically. Behind an old Christmas letter was a blue folder labeled 1991 Closing Papers. The handwriting was mine, younger and neater. I flipped it open, and there it was. The original property deed. My maiden name printed cleanly. Hella R. Anderson Craft. I traced it with my finger. The notary's stamp, still embossed. The signatures, mine and Henry's. I checked the later pages, searching for any transfer or quitclaim. None. The title was still mine. Sole ownership. No joint filing, no reassignment. I sat back slowly, breath steady but shallow. You can't move someone out of a house they still own, I whispered. The words settled in the air, heavier than the silence. Under the deed was a thinner envelope, cream-colored and sealed. It bore Henry's old law firm logo. My hand shook slightly as I opened it. The first page was notarized, the Craft Family Trust, 1998. My name again listed as primary trustee. Henry's signature followed, dated 6 years before his stroke. I read each clause, every line of legal intent. Upon his death, the surviving trustee retained full control over the property and financial accounts. There was no expiration date, no co-signers. My throat tightened. You built this house, Henry, I murmured. I'll keep it standing. The grief that used to crush me now felt like scaffolding, holding me upright. I went to the window, the one facing the maple tree he planted the year we moved in. Its leaves were thinning, pale gold in the October sun. The world outside looked ordinary, but the power in my hand was not. I reached for my phone and scrolled to Janet's name. We'd last spoken months ago about the church fundraiser. My thumb hovered before pressing call. Janet, it's Hella. Well, this is a surprise. You okay, honey? I'm fine. Hypothetically, if someone still owned their house outright, no liens, no mortgage, what could she do with it? Janet chuckled softly. If the deed's clean, it's her decision entirely. She could sell it tomorrow if she wanted. I smiled faintly. Then let's pretend that woman is about to make a move before lunch. There was a pause. Janet had always been the kind of friend who heard what wasn't said. You sound steady, she said. Call me when you're ready for paperwork. I already am. When the call ended, I placed the phone face down. The hum of the refrigerator filled the room again. I gathered the deed, the trust document, and my notes, aligning their edges neatly. Then I went to the copier in the hallway. The light scanned across my hand, striping it in pulses of blue. I slipped the copies into an old recipe binder, the one labeled Cookies and Christmas 1997. Inside, sugar stains met ink and power. As the copier's light blinked off, the silence deepened, not empty this time, but full of intention. I slid the originals into the desk drawer, turned the key, and tucked it into my pocket. They planned demolition for Monday. So did I. I picked up my purse and the folder, locking the door behind me. The air smelled faintly of rain. If they call this house an investment, I whispered, then they'll see how I cash out. The copier light faded completely, leaving the room in perfect stillness. That's when I realized silence could sign faster than any pen. The blue folder sat on the passenger seat, catching bits of sunlight that slipped through the windshield. The bank receipt was tucked inside it, crisp and final. I sat for a minute, listening to the hum of the traffic on Independence Parkway, the faint buzz of a lawnmower somewhere behind the strip mall. The air was hot, faintly metallic. I texted one word to Janet, "Ready." Her reply came fast. "Elm and 12th. Noon. Park near the Oak." We met 2 blocks from my street. Not at the bank, not at my house. She stepped out of her car in flats and a beige cardigan, looking like she'd just left a Bible study. "You've got the papers?" she asked softly. "In the folder. Copies only." She smiled. "Good, no traceable traffic online. I'll handle this, the old-fashioned way." We talked quietly beside her trunk. "No sign, no MLS listing," she said. "By appointment only. I'll vet each buyer personally. No tourists, no nosy neighbors. We show it like a whisper." I nodded. "Only people who love houses with a past." She scanned the copies and nodded again. "Clean title. No liens. You're the decision maker here. Your call. Your pace." "My pace," I repeated, feeling the words settle in my chest like a heartbeat. By 1 o'clock, we were back at my house. Janet had brought a young photographer, early 20s, polite, quick to understand silence. "We'll start with natural light," he said, stepping inside with his camera slung low. The lens gleamed like a tiny, blinking eye. I guided him toward the living room, the cedar table, the hallway. "Avoid personal photos," I murmured. "Keep it neutral, but alive." He nodded, moving softly. The camera clicked once near the front porch, again by the stair rail where the wood gleamed from years of polish. In the kitchen, sunlight touched the oak table like memory itself. The rooster figurine stood where it always had, catching the light as if posing for its own portrait. From upstairs came Lyle's muffled voice, steady, corporate, unaware. "Yes, timeline confirmed. Deliverables by Wednesday." The photographer froze. The floorboard creaked under his shoe. I raised a hand, signaling stillness. For a moment, only Lyle's chair rolled once across the floor above us. Then silence. I whispered, "Back hall, laundry door." He nodded, stepping lightly as his camera clicked again. Front yard through the side window, garden view, soft light over the fence. When the shooting ended, we staged the rooms as if nothing had happened. I folded the quilt over the sofa's arm, left one cookbook open to a pie recipe. On the counter, a single dish towel hung straight. No flourish. The fridge magnets, names and notes, went into a drawer. Except for one faded rocket drawn by my son when he was 7, Janet walked through, lowering the blinds slightly. "We'll shoot the living room again when a cloud passes," she said. The light softened. The house looked lived in, not staged. Honest, not polished. We checked every window, every lock. No trace of strangers remained when we finished. The photographer left through the side gate to his car parked around the corner. Janet lingered, adjusting the doormat with the calm precision of someone setting a stage for a play only a few people would ever see. From upstairs, Lyle coughed. I turned on the faucet, the water masking the small thud of her shoes leaving the porch. She whispered as she passed me, "Tomorrow morning. One couple. If it feels wrong, we walk." "We walk," I repeated. The door clicked shut, the house breathing itself back into ordinary air. Later, as afternoon light bent across the floor, I sat at the table again, the same one that had kept its secrets all these years. I opened my phone and drafted a message to Lyle. "Did you know about Monday's demo?" I stared at it, then erased every word. Instead, I set an alarm for 6:30 a.m. and typed a note. "Windows open for morning light. They plan to erase." I thought, I plan to record. The kitchen sink ran one last time as I rinsed a single mug. The air was still, and the house glowed softly in the lowering sun. Somewhere upstairs, the floor creaked, ordinary life resuming. But the camera had already seen what I needed, the home as I saw it, whole, honest, mine. By dusk, the house looked ordinary again, exactly the disguise a plan like mine deserved. The first sound of the morning wasn't the coffee maker or the birds outside. It was the metallic clink of mail sliding through the front slot. I poured coffee into my favorite mug, the one with the faded magnolia print, and carried it to the counter. The air still held the cool of dawn. When I bent to pick up the stack of envelopes, one stood out, thick paper, all caps label, Homeowner Association notice. "Strange," I murmured. "Too early for Tuesday delivery." I slid it open carefully, like a surgeon. The first line read, "Unauthorized alterations, pending fines, violation of occupancy clause." I read it twice. No one had altered anything yet. They'd already filed something before the demolition even started. The scent of coffee turned bitter in my nose. I sat at my laptop, the letter propped beside the keyboard. New email notifications pinged, subject lines I didn't recognize, pre-clearance for remodel. Temporary relocation of occupant. I opened one. It was addressed to the HOA board, CC'd to both Darlie and Lyle. "Mom understands this is for the best. She'll stay elsewhere until project completion." The timestamp, 2:47. Ma'am. My hand trembled just once before I steadied it on the table. They had written my consent while I was asleep. The inbox filled with their words, architect files, quotes, emails signed by my son. Each line polished, professional, as if I were a line item on a spreadsheet. The cursor blinked, waiting for my reply. I didn't give it one. Footsteps creaked on the stairs. Lyle came down half-dressed for work, tightening his tie with one hand, travel mug in the other. "You'll probably get something from the HOA," he said casually, not meeting my eyes. "Just needs signatures. Standard process." I smiled faintly. "Already did." He nodded, distracted, kissed the air near my cheek, and left. The front door clicked shut. I locked it behind him, the sound deliberate. The house was still again, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. I sat at the table, reread the letter, and reached for a yellow highlighter. Unauthorized alterations. I drew a line under it, then under occupancy clause. They'd copied that phrase from the remodel plan. My plan was simpler. I called the HOA office. The phone rang 3 times before a woman answered. "This is Carol with the Willow Glen Homeowners Association." "Good morning, Carol. This is Hella Craft on Harvest Lane. Before you process any fines, would you mind confirming the titled owner on record for that address?" A pause. I could hear her keyboard clacking. "Oh, Mrs. Craft, it's you. It says the deed is under your name only." "Still is," I said softly. "You might want to forward that to your board before they waste postage." She cleared her throat. "Of course. I'll update the notes." "Thank you, Carol. I know how confusing paperwork can be." When I hung up, I printed the call log, slipped it into a folder beside the deed copy, and wrote in small, careful letters, "Proof of notice. Invalid claim." The phone buzzed with a text from Janet. "First couple confirmed for showing at noon. Everything looks perfect." I typed back, "Keep the blinds halfway open." Then I folded the HOA letter in half, then once more, and tucked it into my recipe binder under breakfast. I smiled. They wanted signatures, I whispered. So I'll give them documents, just not the ones they expect. By 2 o'clock, sunlight had warmed the countertop. The HOA envelope lay there, glowing faintly like something that wanted to be important. I picked it up and turned it over once. The camera of my mind framed it like evidence. People assume silence means permission. It only means I'm still measuring the noise. I checked my watch. Nearly noon. Time for the first showing. The HOA letter stayed on the counter all afternoon, pretending to have power. By evening, real strangers would walk through the door. At noon exactly. The doorbell chimed once, the way punctual people announce themselves. Through the half-open blinds, I saw Janet on the sidewalk, playing the part of a neighbor out for a walk. Behind her stood a couple in their late 50s. Elaine had calm eyes that read rooms without scraping them. Martin rested his palm on the porch post a moment, as if greeting it. He felt the board that always answers my step and smiled. "Welcome," I said. "This house prefers mornings, but she tolerates noon." They smiled, not the polite kind, but the kind that reaches the eyes. Janet gave a small wave and stayed outside, as planned. I didn't give a tour. I walked. They followed, listening to the way old wood talks. Elaine ran her fingers along the handrail, knowing that oil from palms is a promise, not a stain. Martin faced the front windows. "Does the porch get morning light?" he asked. "It does," I said. "It floods the hallway. By 3, the live oak takes over." In the kitchen, he traced the oak table grain with 2 fingers. Elaine noticed the rooster by the sink and smiled without touching it. No talk of knocking down walls. Instead, which corner keeps the heat in winter? "The one by the vent that rattles if you set a heavy pot on it," I said. We all heard the refrigerator hum, a small, honest sound. I sliced banana bread I had baked at 10, when the house still smelled like coffee and lemon. The plates were mismatched on purpose. Homes don't match. Martin took a bite and nodded like he'd met a citizen he could trust. Elaine asked, "You've loved this place, haven't you?" She didn't tilt her head. She held the question steady. "The way you hold a door for someone carrying boxes." "I still do," I said. The truth sat between us like steam. "Then why sell?" Martin asked, gentle but plain. "Because it's mine to decide," I said, "and I want it to be wanted, not managed, not harvested, wanted." We paused in the living room where afternoon light softens edges. Elaine glanced at the photo of my late husband and then at me. She did not pry. She let silence do the respectful work. We stepped onto the porch. Cut grass from a neighbor's yard sent up its green, practical smell. We faced the street together like people waiting for a parade that might or might not come. "If you decide to write," I said, "I have one humane condition." Janet nodded from the sidewalk. She already knew. "No major demolition for 12 months, she said, as if we had rehearsed, "and one private morning after closing." Elaine gave a yes that honored gravity. Martin touched the post the way a man checks his pulse. "We prefer to learn a house before we change it," he said. "Morning light first, walls later, if ever." "If you cannot live first," I added, "you cannot have it." Back in the kitchen, Janet's tablet woke with a quiet glow. "They're prepared," she murmured. Within the hour, an offer arrived, spare and legible, like handwriting you trust. Standard contingencies, inspection framed as safety, not theater. Our clause stood in the addendum in Janet's precise language. No major demolition for 12 months, and one private morning for the seller after closing. No occupants or contractors on site during that time. There was no bargaining. Elaine and Martin initialed the clause like people who keep their word because it suits them to be decent. I initialed slowly, not for show, but to feel the ink commit. Fair treatment is not a gift. It is a standard met. My hands were steady. I did not shake. I breathed. At the door, Elaine asked, "Anything we should know that isn't on paper?" "Yes," I said. "The leftmost kitchen drawer sticks unless you press with your thumb on the top edge. It works better when you handle it where it's strongest." Martin smiled. "We'll remember." After they left, the house felt lighter, the way a room does after a good conversation. Janet lingered by the threshold, aligning the doormat with a careful toe. "I'll shepherd the timeline," she said. "Keep your circle small. If anything feels wrong, we walk." "We walk," I said. She tapped the tablet dark and slipped it into her bag. I slid the signed terms beneath the front cover of the recipe binder, right above biscuits. Paper makes loud people show their hands. Give them time with a document, and you will meet their truest selves. By late afternoon, the sun shifted to the high slant that brightens the hallway tile. I ran a cloth over the oak table and left 2 plates to air, the banana bread crumbs a small constellation. I sent Janet a 2-word text, "Thank you." She replied with a heart and a check mark, modern hieroglyphs for a promise kept. At the back door, I watched a pair of doves hop along the fence line, taking turns the way old couples do when balance is the point. I thought about the morning, the letter, the emails, the breath I counted so it wouldn't turn sharp. Now the counting felt different, not defense, calibration. I rinsed the knife, set it blade down in the drying rack, and turned off the kitchen light. The house seemed to stand up a little straighter, like a person who finally squares their shoulders at the mirror. "They'll push back now," I told the quiet rooms. Paper invites inventions. The room did not answer, but the stillness approved. The ink on their offer dried without ceremony. That's usually when loud people invent new paperwork. I was ready to read it. Slowly. The morning sunlight stretched across the porch in thin, deliberate lines. A plain manila envelope waited near the doormat, the kind used by accountants and people who like things official. The return label read Kraft Family Holdings. We had no such entity. I carried it to the kitchen table, laid it beside my coffee, and sliced through the flap with a butter knife. Inside was a document titled Temporary Storage Deed Agreement. So the pages were crisp, printed in professional fonts, the kind that pretends to sound lawful. It claimed to temporarily transfer management of the property to shared family oversight until renovations conclude. The signature line already held my name, printed in italics. Not ink. I ran my finger under it and whispered, "Even forgery has its fonts." They'd mailed it like a courtesy, as if bureaucracy could bully handwriting. At noon, Lyle came into the kitchen in his work slacks, phone glowing in his palm. He ate standing, fork tapping the edge of the bowl like a metronome for guilt. "Some papers might come by mail," he said without looking up. "Just standard transfer stuff, insurance forms." I already saw them. He blinked once, too slowly, and set the mug down with care. "Good," he said, voice almost cheerful. Silence spread across the room like spilled coffee. When he left, I watched his car back out, the tires crunching gravel. Inside, the stillness held its breath. Silence. The coward's signature, I thought. Around 2. Another envelope arrived, white clinical, with the letterhead of Dr. Harmon, Behavioral Wellness Clinic. The note began politely. In light of recent transitions, it is advisable for Mrs. Helle Kraft to undergo periodic evaluation of cognitive readiness to ensure safe decision-making. The phrasing was smooth. Advisable. Periodic. Safe. The vocabulary of gentle control. I could almost hear Darley's voice rehearsing the concern over the phone. She's under stress. Doctor. We're worried. The letter wasn't an attack. It was a seed, meant to grow into doubt. I fetched my red pen, circled the word evaluation, and wrote one word beside it. Noted, no outrage, just air leaving my lungs in a measured way. By 3. I was in my car driving to Rennick and Harlow, the law firm where my husband once signed the power of attorney decades ago. The same smell greeted me. Paper, lemon polish, and time. Mr. Rennick was older now, his hair a tidy cloud of white. He rose, shaking my hand with the kind of grip that remembers history. What's brought you in, Helly? I placed 2 envelopes on his desk. Forgery and presumption, I said. He adjusted his glasses, read the temporary storage deed, and smiled, not kindly, but knowingly. They want you to sign this? No. They want me to think I already did. He chuckled once, a sound between law and disbelief. Then I slid the doctor's letter forward. And this, I added, to make sure no one listens when I speak. He read it carefully, exhaled through his nose. Classic. Will make it useful. He pulled a fresh sheet from his printer, typing as he spoke. This will be your own statement. Dated, notarized, declaring that all third-party claims or temporary transfers are invalid without your original signature. He handed me the page. I read it twice, then signed with a hand that did not shake. He notarized it, the stamp thudding like a seal on steel. Keep the original, he said. Mail them the copy. Let them recognize your handwriting when it arrives. I smiled. Witness my full capacity. I said aloud, That's the spirit. He replied, Nothing louder than quiet paperwork. Outside, the day had turned sharp with early fall light. I drove toward the medical plaza, the letter from Dr. Harmon folded neatly on the seat beside me. The clinic parking lot was half empty, sunlight bouncing off windshields. I parked facing the building, the air conditioner humming softly. Through the glass doors, I saw Dr. Harmon himself crossing the lobby, white coat flapping, unaware of the trail behind him. I didn't get out. I just whispered to the windshield. They measure memory in minutes. I measure theirs in paperwork. Then I started the engine, the legal statement safe in my purse, the fake deed ready for the mail slot. By the time I turned into my driveway, the porch light had flicked on automatically, its own small signature of loyalty. Inside, the fax machine blinked green. Each lie now had my handwriting beside it, notarized, dated, and alive. The text from Lyle came mid-morning. Mom, can you come over this afternoon? Darley wants to talk. Nothing bad. Promise. I read it twice. The words nothing bad always arrive too early, like umbrellas before a storm. I slid the phone onto the counter, looked at the folder already waiting by the toaster, my notarized statement, the forged storage deed, and the doctor's letter. I slipped the folder into my tote. When people say nothing bad, they've already planned the stage. At 2:00, their driveway shimmered under the Texas sun. The blinds in their living room were drawn halfway, the kind of lighting that flatters guilt. Inside, Darley had arranged 3 chairs in a neat semicircle, a tissue box sitting precisely in the middle. Lyle stood by the mantel, hands in his pockets, avoiding my eyes. Mom, Darley began with her church voice calm, we're just worried about you. That's all this is. I remained standing. I prefer solid ground. Lyle nodded at the empty chair opposite me. You've seemed overwhelmed after Dad passed. And the house things. The house things, I repeated. That's one word for them. Darley folded her hands. We want what's best for you. Transitions can be hard at your age. I looked at the box of tissues between us, the centerpiece of pity. You've practiced this, I said softly. She blinked, caught off rhythm. This isn't an attack. Mom? No, I said. It's a performance. Darlie tapped her phone and placed it on the coffee table. Dr. Harmon, can you explain your recommendation? His voice crackled through the speaker, warm and rehearsed. Yes, I just advised a brief cognitive review. Very standard, nothing alarming. I took a step closer. Doctor, did my daughter-in-law tell you that I requested that review? A pause. Papers rustled. I assumed it came from a family concern. So you issued a recommendation without the patient's consent? The pause stretched. That may have been a misunderstanding. Not on my part, I said. Darlie's smile stiffened. Lyle rubbed his temple. The speaker went silent, then clicked off. The room filled with the kind of quiet that shows people their own reflection. I set my toad on the table and drew out the folder. The movement was slow, deliberate, the pace of someone unafraid of paperwork. This, I said, opening the first page, is my notarized declaration filed yesterday. It voids all third-party claims to my property. The next page, the fake storage deed, glowed under the lamp. Red pen notes crossed its margins. Forgery. Notarized on 4/12. Darlie's voice cracked. You went to a lawyer? I went to the truth. I slid the copies toward them, neat as napkins. You should keep these for your records. It saves everyone time later. Lyle didn't reach for his. Darlie did. Fingers trembling against the page. This isn't how family handles things, she whispered. No, I agreed. It's how adults handle lies. The wall clock ticked, soft and even. None of us moved. The air felt balanced again, as if the room had exhaled. This, I said finally, tapping the folder shut, is how silence sounds when it wins. I left before they could rehearse apologies. The air outside felt honest, dry, clean, earned. In the car, my phone buzzed. Janet's text. Meeting done? I typed back. Done. They won't speak for a while. Her reply came quick. Offer cleared escrow today. I watched the sunset pour gold across their street, the same street where I once walked their dog while they traveled. The porch light behind me flickered on, confused by the daylight. Good, I said quietly. Let them sit with their comfort. When, by nightfall, their silence was louder than apology. Paperwork does that to people. The morning light slid under the door, catching on a folded paper and a white envelope tucked neatly against the mat. I bent to pick them up. The smell of early rain still hanging in the air. Lyle's handwriting stretched across the front. Careful, uneven. Mom, I was wrong. I want to fix what we broke. Lyle. Inside the envelope was not an apology card, but a bank form, a blank withdrawal slip, and an authorization request. My name appeared at the top, misspelled, Helly Craft. I stared at the extra letter, small as a scratch but loud as an echo. Apologies are sentences, authorizations are signatures. Only one of them needs my hand. I placed both on the counter beside the coffee pot, the steam rising like a slow question. The kitchen smelled of toast and distance. Somewhere outside, a mail truck rattled by. Its sound softer than guilt. By mid-morning, my laptop chimed. An email from the HOA manager blinked open. Following title verification, any proposed fines are rescinded. Will await direction from the titled owner. I smiled, a small curve without teeth, and typed my reply, your records now reflect reality. Then I printed their message and slid it into the recipe binder, right behind the breakfast tab, beside the original warning letter. Paper can bruise, but sometimes it also heals. While the coffee cooled, I took out the forged storage deed from earlier in the week. The same typo looked back at me. Helly. I remembered how Darlie typed fast when she was nervous, her fingers doubling consonants as if trying to outrun truth. Patterns are confessions that don't need witnesses. At noon. I drove to the neighborhood credit union. The lobby smelled of lemon polish and printer ink. Sunlight filtered through high windows, landing on marble floors that gleamed like clean decisions. A teller greeted me with a polite smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Kraft." "Thank you," I said. "And yes, it's Hella, 1L. We sat down at her desk. I slid the deed copy toward her. "I'd like to create a revocable living trust, Kraft Family Trust. I'll be the trustee. My granddaughter, Ellie, will be the contingent beneficiary." Her eyes softened. "Of course," I explained, calmly and clearly, how the proceeds from my house sale would transfer directly into the trust, every disbursement requiring my signature as trustee. Then I added, "If anyone ever submits forms under the spelling Helly, flag them for fraud and call me personally." She nodded, typing quickly. "Understood." When the papers printed, I signed them, the pen gliding without tremor. The notary stamp landed with a gentle thud, like a seal closing on calm water. If they wanted a pen, I brought a press. By early afternoon, I parked outside the branch and texted Janet. "Trust established. Confirm earliest clean close." She called immediately. "Title company says next Friday works. Buyers accepted all conditions. 12-month no demolition clause stands." "Perfect," I said. "You did it. Help. The rest is just signatures." I smiled. Signatures are my specialty. When the email from her arrived, I printed the closing statement and slid it under breads and pies in the binder. That binder was no longer just recipes. It was a quiet archive of survival. Later, the phone rang. Ellie's voice sparkled through the line. "Grandma, did you eat?" "I did. Banana bread. Save you a slice." She giggled. "Don't tell Dad I like yours better." "I never do," I said, smiling. The sun dipped low, lighting the binder's tabs like soft bookmarks in a steady life. Hope isn't loud. It's a small voice that knows your name. Spelled right. The knock came at 5:15 in the evening, just as the sun was thinning into orange glass across the porch. I froze for a moment, thinking it might be another delivery or a notice from someone trying to look official. But when I opened the door, there was no envelope, no folder, no printed lies, only Lyle. He stood there empty-handed, eyes red, shirt untucked. The silence between us stretched longer than the walkway. I noticed his hands, open, not clutching anything. Good, I thought. He came with words, not forms. I opened the door just enough for a conversation. "Mom," he said, voice rough, "can I talk for a minute?" "You can." I answered, "A minute's fair." We sat at the kitchen table where contracts didn't live. The recipe binder was closed, silent on the counter. 2 glasses of water stood between us, unplanned but equal. Lyle took a breath, the kind that sounds like someone rehearsed it all the way from the driveway. "I just need to say things once. No fixing tonight. Just truth." I nodded. "Good rule." He rubbed his palms together, eyes on the table. "When Dad died, I thought I could handle everything. The house, the accounts, the job. But then the project I was leading got canceled. I had to take a bridge loan. Darlie said remodeling our house would boost the resale value, help us cover the gap." He looked up, voice thinning. "We used you like insurance. Mom, Your steadiness made people trust us. And when Darlie said you'd be happier somewhere else, I didn't fight her. It solved the spreadsheet." The sentence hung there like dust in sunlight, visible, fragile, true. He continued quietly. "When you saw that fake deed, I didn't write it, but I didn't stop it either. I let it happen. I stayed still. Silence has its own gravity. It pulls truth out." Lyle's voice broke slightly. "The double L in your name. That was Darlie typing fast. I saw it. I saw her hit the key twice and didn't say a word." He looked smaller than I remembered. "I was a boy in a man's suit," he said. "I wanted the house to parent me. I waited until he stopped fidgeting. You wrote my consent in rooms I wasn't in," I said softly. "You let someone else shape my name. Those are not small things." He nodded. "I know. You don't speak for me again, ever. If you try, paper will answer you." He winced but didn't argue. "You will not touch the trust." I continued. "If you need help, you ask, and I decide, not Darlie, not you behind her." Lyle swallowed, shoulders bent. "What do you want from me now?" "Consequences," I said, "and respect that isn't a performance." He nodded once. That was the first honest movement he'd made in months. When he stood to leave, I didn't offer comfort. He'd come with words. They would have to be enough. The screen door clicked behind him. I stepped onto the back porch and let the Texas evening fill my lungs. The sky smelled like dust and clean endings. I typed a text to Darlie, deleted it before the second word. Silence, again, was my strongest sentence. At 8:45, the phone buzzed. Ellie's voice came small but bright. "Grandma, Dad says you're okay. Are you?" "I am," I said. "Come for pancakes Saturday." She giggled. "I'll bring my own maple syrup." "That's a deal." Her laughter softened the edges of the night. By morning, the smell of batter replaced last night's tension. Ellie stood on a stool, flipping one pancake with the clumsy grace of a 9-year-old learning confidence. Lyle dropped her off but stayed near the doorway, hat in his hands. "I'll pick her up at 10, he murmured. I nodded. "The coffee pot's on, if you need to stand a while." He smiled faintly, but didn't step farther in. Boundaries held without words. Ellie stacked her pancakes, syrup running over the edges. "Grandma, what's your new house like?" "Smaller," I said, "but it breathes." When they left, Lyle met my eyes for half a second, saying nothing. That silence felt different. No longer evasion. Maybe respect, learning its first word. After pancakes, the house seemed lighter, ready to let me go. The papers would make it official by Friday. The title company office smelled of paper and air conditioning. Neutral, efficient, almost too quiet. I arrived 10 minutes early, folder and binder in hand for the final time. The receptionist smiled politely, the kind of smile that belongs to places where goodbyes are processed like transactions. Mr. Coulson, the title officer, gestured toward a seat across his polished desk. "Mrs. Kraft, we're almost there. Just 3 signatures and 1 initial." Each signature felt like letting go of oxygen but gaining air. Janet sat beside me, her quiet confidence filling the gaps between the fluorescent hum and my heartbeat. "Congratulations," she said. "It's official." Before I could answer, the glass door opened. The sound of the bell startled even Mr. Coulson. Lyle stood in the doorway, holding a single folded letter. His shirt was pressed this time, but his eyes carried last week's mistakes. He stepped forward, voice low. "She wrote this, but didn't sign it. Said you wouldn't believe it anyway." I didn't reach for it right away. "Darlie wrote it." He nodded. "Half the night. She tore one up before this." I took the letter, unfolded it slowly. The handwriting leaned hard to the right, familiar urgency, tidy guilt. The words began with "I panicked. I thought you'd never let go." Excuses shaped like apologies. Spaces between sentences where honesty should have lived. At the bottom, a blank line waited, no signature. I traced the white space with my fingertip. Even her remorse needed my handwriting to complete it. Folding the page, I handed it back. "You keep it. It's still hers." Lyle nodded, uncertain whether to thank me or apologize again. "You're really doing it today," he said. "I already did," I replied. He left quietly, closing the door with care. Janet looked at me, question unspoken. I just smiled faintly. "No need for copies of that one." After the meeting, we drove back to the house one last time. The driveway looked longer without the car in it. Inside, the rooms held their breath, echoes where furniture once defined purpose. I ran my hand along the doorframe where Ellie's height marks climbed in faded pencil lines, small notches, small years. I wanted to measure them one last time, but didn't. The kitchen counter gleamed. I wiped it anyway. Not out of duty, but as a quiet ritual. Curation, not cleaning. On the hook by the door, a ring of keys hung. Front, back, shed, mailbox. 4 pieces of metal and 2 decades of life. In the center of the ring, 1 small brass key, shed door, stubborn lock. I slipped it off and into my pocket. The rest could stay. I'd take what still fit in a palm. Before leaving, I placed the full key ring on the counter and set a note beside it. House complete, lessons ongoing. I looked around once more. The air had changed, emptier, but not sad, more like a breath held too long. Finally exhaled. Outside, Janet leaned against her car, arms crossed, eyes kind. "Ready for Denton?" "I've been ready for a while," I said. We drove north as the sun lowered behind us. The highway unwound like a film reel, each mile a frame of quiet redemption. By evening, the cottage waited, white shutters, cedar trees whispering at its edges. A porch swing creaked softly in the wind. The realtor had left the lights on inside. Warmth glowed through new curtains I hadn't yet touched. I set my notebook on the table, the one Ellie painted with small sunflowers at age 7. Next to it, a single vase she'd glazed in school, uneven but proud. The phone chimed. Ellie's voicemail played. "Grandma, send pictures and save me the first weekend." I smiled, eyes catching the faint reflection of the missing key in my palm. I dropped it into the vase, heard it land with a small, perfect sound. Sometimes letting go is the most precise form of keeping. Morning light spread across the cedar porch like a calm hand, smoothing the wrinkles of a new day. My coffee steamed beside the open notebook, the same one that once held deeds, drafts, and paper battles. Now it held only words that would never travel. At the top of the page, "I forgive you, but not for you, for me." I read it once, softly, as if testing how forgiveness sounded when spoken to an empty room. Then I folded the letter and slipped it into the back of the notebook. No stamp, no address, no intent to send. Sometimes silence carries more love than any reply could. I leaned back, listening to the birds scatter across the fence. No deadlines, no phone buzzing with legal questions, just the hum of wind and the small truth of being still. By mid-morning, I walked down the hill toward the neighborhood church. The bell chimed once. Low, welcoming. Inside, sunlight spilled through plain glass windows. Pastor Lynn spoke gently about rebuilding, not where you lost, but where you learned. Those words landed like feathers on water. I lit a small candle and whispered, "For peace, not payback." It flickered once, then steadied. I smiled. Good candles understand calm. After service, I followed the sound of guitar strings and laughter to the farmer's market across the street. Baskets of peaches, wild flowers in mason jars, the smell of bread thick in the air. I bought a small bouquet, just enough to make the cottage feel alive. Then a voice behind me. "Grandma!" Ellie darted between the stalls, waving a brown paper bag. Janet followed a few steps behind, grinning like she'd been part of the surprise all along. Ellie handed me the bag. Inside was a small wooden sign, carved with clumsy but confident hands. "Home is where you begin again." She bit her lip. "My art teacher helped with the sanding. Do you like it?" I held it close. "I love it." No tears this time, just warmth steady enough to stand on. I kissed her forehead. "You sweetheart will never spell my name wrong." We walked the market together, 3 generations of ordinary peace. Janet bought apples. Ellie insisted on kettle corn. I paid for everything with small bills and a heart that didn't count. Back home, the cottage smelled of sunlight and new wood. On the counter blinked a voicemail light. Janet's voice. "New buyers wanted me to tell you. House looked perfect. They said thank you." A soft ping followed. Lyle's text. "Mom, Ellie's safe. Thank you." I typed back. "She's always safe here." Then I paused, reread it, and deleted it. The message didn't need sending. The truth had already arrived. Late afternoon stretched gold over the porch. I placed Ellie's wooden sign beside the vase that still held the missing key. 2 keepsakes, one from what I released, one from what I kept. "They both belong here," I whispered. A neighbor walking his dog waved. I waved back. It felt good to belong without explanation. The air cooled. The sky shifted from honey to violet. I opened my notebook, looked at the folded letter, and smiled. It didn't need to travel. It had already done its work. I closed the cover, set my mug down, and spoke softly, half to the quiet, half to whoever might be watching from another porch. Another story. If someone ever tells you to move out of your peace, remember, you can always move back into yourself. The sun slipped behind the trees. The world exhaled. And that's where I live now. Life teaches you that peace isn't something people hand you. It's something you build quietly, one decision at a time. I learned that forgiveness doesn't mean letting others rewrite your story. It means reclaiming the pen and writing the next chapter yourself. No one is too old to start again, and no moment is too late to find your strength. If my story touched your heart, tell me where you're watching from. I love knowing how far these little lessons travel, or just drop a if you've ever had to rebuild your peace. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you won't miss the next story about courage, family, and second chances.